Welcome, fellow wizards, to the Indie Game Lunch Hour. Today we're talking with David Blackmagic Elahee, an indie developer of many hats over in Angoulême, France.
The Indie Game Lunch Hour.
In our live podcast, we give listeners the chance to hear stories of breaking into the industry from industry veterans, as well as giving them a chance to ask questions at the end of each episode. David is joining us from Angoulême, France, where it is actually a big indie game scene over there. He's a game developer at Headbang Club, and he has experience in putting together festivals and other indie events, making him a linchpin of his local game dev community. David, what are you having for lunch?
Lunch is past because we're in France, obviously. But I had like some vegetarian sandwich with truffle cheese for $5 in our local sandwich cooker, which is really awesome and super cool. But yeah, like it's south of France, you can actually have truffle cheese for lunch for $5.
That's amazing. I don't think I've had anything for lunch for $5 in a while. All right, very cool. So let's help our audience get to know you a little bit. Provide some backstory on who you are, what you like to do, and how you got started in the industry.
Hey, so I started like 20 years ago. I was at the French National Game Dev School, which is in Angoulême, but I left. And then I went to a small shovelware company, which was called Man Monkey Studio, which made notable games like Totally Spice, Totally Party, which was one of the first party game of the Wii. And we did like interactive DVD, and it was like shovelware. So we worked with Microids, Adoman Interactive, Mindscape, or like THQ. We did some minor games, and there I worked with Motion Twin, which was already slightly more famous. And I joined Motion Twin, and we worked on Mush and what would later become Dead Cells. And I was then doing tech on the beginning of Dead Cells. So in the beginning, it was a cooperative tower defense on mobile. So I was doing the tech, running it at 60 FPS. And Motion Twin was already a famous company because they imported the free-to-play model in Europe. So they were already really big with analytics and data and making gameplay that would like be efficient. So they didn't start it like just these days. And when I quit, we assembled. We thought we could like farm or anything, and we had burnout for a year. And then we did the game jam, and we created Double Kick Heroes, which the concept is really broken. The game design is broken. Everything is broken in this game, but people loved it on the jam. So in 2 weeks after the jam, we had 50,000 players. And so we woke up to like what was an overnight jam success. So we decided to invest in and leave the cheese farming stuff. And we decided to launch our company, Headbang Club. So in the beginning, Headbang Club starting with like a free demo of Double Kick Heroes, which was a small snuff, and we made work for hires. We got subsidies, we got banking loans to start and kick up the jam, and we did a lot of guerrilla marketing with some like community management. And then we never found a publisher, but I made sure to get our names out. So I talked to the press, and I actually like bitched on publishers saying they were not courageous enough to publish us, which was kind of real, but it was still a bold move, and it took. So we continued with Double Kick, and we brought on stage many. So Double Kick Heroes is a metal rhythm shooter. You just like Guitar Hero, you just play metal and you shoot at zombies. Every note is a gunfire. And so it's a super simple pitch. It's 4 words. It's metal, rhythm, zombies, shooting. So it was really efficient, and we did it with metal music when metal was like outdated. Now it has come back a bit in Europe at least, but in these days pixel art was outdated, metal was outdated, so a lot of stuff were against the tide of mainstream, and it took so well. And so we brought on big metal bands, which are now like much more famous, like Gojira or Carpenter Brute, Volcorix, Gorod, Psycup, Sidilas, and other bands. We had song from Runtal, which is called Bumblefoot. Maybe you know it. So we also had like people from Archspire. Well, a lot of good metal bands, and so the game took the eye of Microsoft, and they got us into Game Pass, which was like super awesome and a lot of cash, obviously. And we also did the motion controls on Switch, so you can play like air drumming the game, which also helped in the trailers and to prove the game was super cool. So we had a lot of expertise negotiating with game console makers. So being featured because you have hair drum on Switch is obviously like a nice move. So we tried to do marketing like the guerrilla way, and it took off. But to fund all this, we're also doing like work for hires and assisting in other game companies. So on our website, you can see many of the games we assisted. We are doing like music videos, we're doing game trailers, we're doing pre-production. Recently, we assisted the Metal Slug Tactics team. We did the pre-production video, and we also did the pixel art during 4 or 5 years. So the game was out like 2 days or 3 days ago, and it's doing like super well. So yeah, that's us. We try to push our games, but usually we don't find publishers because the game are too weird. But we try to still find money by making cool games with cool people still. So that's us.
That is awesome. I think that that is really the spirit of indie, where publishers, depending on the publisher, a lot of them have a track record of wanting to seek that safe bet, one where they know if they invest in it, they'll return money. But if you have a really innovative product, there can be a hook there that makes a lot of sense with your guerrilla marketing tactics. Like, you talk about metal rock band versus the zombies. Like, we had a cartoon here back in the 90s. It was called the Justice Friends. It was like a little thing that was attached to another cartoon. And there was a character who was like a Viking rock god, and he would like slam his guitar, and music notes would go out and attack things. And I'm imagining something like that where you're just doing that, but you're fighting zombies. And it, like, that's a really cool hook. And then the fact that you are able to continue to run with it and, like, use the motion controls to really get into the band. Plus, there's a ton of amazing metal bands over in Europe specifically, and they're pretty in pretty tight quarters, close proximity to each other. So that sounds like you had a really solid pitch, but maybe something that a publisher wouldn't believe in. And that's really cool that you were able to get the word out on your own.
Actually, publishers kind of believed in it, but when you have a committee, publisher function by committee, and it must be voted unanimously. And in 10 people, you always will have someone which either doesn't love metal or doesn't love pixel art or doesn't love rhythm games, and rhythm games are hard to sell. So I cannot like blame them. It's just the way it works. It's so much the investment. But in the end, we did super well. But it's the same for our next game. We are doing something with a Japanese vibe, and then like it's tough for a Western publisher to publish something with a Japanese vibe. And we always have this kind of problem because we want to make games out of the box. Just that.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the problems when you are judged by committee, is you have to end up with something that's very broad and bland, and stuff that has a more acute and pointed identity is something that's more likely to get looked over by that kind of committee review process.
Yeah, obviously. So sadly, sometimes it works because, like for Devolver, there are very small number and there's a core, so you can have things that really feels like Devolver but never be the same twice again. But oftentimes the money is just so crushing in terms of motivation.
Right. Yeah, speaking of money, so you said that once you started off with the idea of a game jam. That's I've heard this as a strategy where what you need to do is just make a lot of different games, and then when you have that one that inexplicably resonates with a ton of people, lean into it. It sounds like you picked up on that with one of your projects and you went into it, but you also had to figure out how to fund yourselves through the process. Can you talk about those work for hire contracts and how you found yourself funding?
Yeah, just getting back to game jams, this is something we experimented a lot at Motion Twin because we were like quite well-known jammers. And one game jam especially was quite well-known, which is called Evoland, now done by Shiro Games. But Nicolas Canas was already a character, and he outed Evoland with 120 downloads when he did his. So when I was like 50k downloads, okay, it will not be an Evoland 2, but it's still something. So that's the thing. And then you can go to the banker and challenge bankers because I already had like 12 years of experience. So I kind of knew what I did. And we had like a lot of luck because our bankers was like a Metalhead fan and she was loving video games. So I just said, okay, this is the thing. She said, well, okay. And I said, 50,000 downloads in 2 weeks. She said, okay, how much do you want? This amount? Okay, more. So when you take people and you talk to their hearts and you also have the metrics, and for them it's like very small sums, 10k, 20k, it's like nothing. So you can actually pay your money less and have some levers with subsidies and tax breaks, and then you can like snowball into making a game. So Double Kick is not like a super high budget; it's 150k plus, and it's minimalistic in its approach, in its visuals, and many stuff. But what we want to do was awesome music, awesome game feel, and this we focused on this, and so we succeeded. About funding, so we're assisting a lot of teams and we have a lot of friends which also assist us back to back, and with leverage from banks subsidies we can maintain like some kind of balance between working on the game and making other stuff. So about the games we held during these days, it was we made some application for museums, like super famous museums in Paris, which was like good because Paris level of living is like 3 times the one in Angoulême. So we can like actually snowball a small amount of money in Paris a lot for us. So we can like try to have some advantage here. And then we work with Accidental Queens, which was doing alt frequencies. They were the girls which did normal Lost Phone. I don't know if you know it. And then we worked on a lot of like small indie games, and then we did some ports for Merchant of the Sky on PS5, which was one of the first pixel art game on PS5. It was a super awesome game. It issued from a game jam as well. So
So you
it's
said
really
you.
like, yeah,
I was just curious about working on the other indie games. I'm assuming they contracted you to help them
yeah.
finish their own projects. How did you find those teams to work with?
On game dev slacks or discords, or we met in events. We did a lot of events in France. We did the only PAX, which was done in France, but it crashed, it bombed later on. So we met and we shake hands and we said, hey, I can do this, I can help you with this. Not only ports, but also like you have this game on this platform and you want to take it on another super complicated platform. And then, since we are tech guys in the beginning, I've done technical direction from Nintendo DS back in the days. I was able to take any project and put it anywhere else. So the technical advantage we had allowed us to find many contracts.
Excellent. So that sounds like networking was the big key. Just
Yeah.
always getting to know other people who were in a related, doing something
Yeah.
related to your skill set and making sure they knew who you were.
and making friends of every horizon, because our company is not like super similar to Accidental Queen or Atelier 801 or other companies, but we are still friends in the end, and we still talk about games, and we are still in the same area of working. So it's always important. We're a village. There's a lot of people working on a game. Even if they work like 1 hour, we can exchange, and then when they have needs, we can work together. But it's really, you have to be super tight with the community.
Yeah,
Because
they
when
say
someone
game
have a
dev is a small
publisher,
industry.
then he can make everybody works with you, and so we can
Yeah,
go forward together.
yeah, exactly. The the tide rises and everyone rises together. You just want to
Yeah.
be a part of that boat chain. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Cool. So I did interrupt you. Do you remember where you were? Do you want to pick up off of that? That's
No, about other work for hires we did. I also worked on Warhammer Mechanicus. Our friends from Bulwark who are published by Calypso Casedo entity. They had this like super awesome games on PC. The game is really super cool, and asked if they had like a console in mind, because console is my specialty as a dev. And I was like, okay, you don't do anything. Can I buy the rights? And they said, what the fuck? Are you like buying the rights for a tactical PC game? I was like, yeah, sure. Don't mind me. Just give me the right. And so they did like a market study, and they said, oh my fucking god, there's a lot of money to do. Okay, we won't give you the rights, but if you want, you can do the port at with a very good payment. So we did it, and in the end, they doubled the PC numbers with consoles, so it was like super highly profitable. So this is something I do. I come to France and I say, hey, I can take your game on consoles. We did it also with Shotgun King, which is like chess with a shotgun. What's not to love? And we took the game on consoles, and it also did well on PC. It's like a massive success. And so about work for hires, sometimes we do like more subtle stuff, which is like not only working for the people, but helping them make the most of their IPs, which is slightly different because we take some risk with them, and it's always paying, because in the end we work on cool games. Mechanicus is a very cool game. Shotgun King is a very cool game. Camaro is a very cool game. So we are highly privileged. We don't have to make work for hires for other industries. We only work on games for now, and we are very super lucky. But it feels like being privileged to work on such like super classy and super awesome games. I mean, Shotgun King, I spent like 100 hours on it, and I'm still bad, but I love it.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the dreams, to be able to dedicate all of your time in game development to actually building the kind of games that are the reason you wanted to make games.
Yeah, it's
So
really.
I did have a question. So it sounds like you have a reasonable amount of marketing and business acumen when it comes to making or identifying opportunities in these games. You offered to buy the rights to a game that you saw a market opportunity for, and that's something that I feel a lot of the people, like the listeners of this podcast, they're learning how to build games, and their goal is to get to the point that they can make money. And a huge part of that is recognizing viable business opportunities. What would you recommend to somebody who wants to get better at identifying those kinds of things? Like, you were able to see that the console market would resonate well. How did you come by that understanding, and how can somebody find their own piece of that understanding?
That's a tough question. In general, I think most of PC success will do good on console. You have to cross a threshold and say, okay, we can carry on. But like many game developers are assuming that people will just play games on the best platform, and it's false, because players are not only what I call one major screen. We play on phone, on consoles, on PC. As game developers, we have so many fucking screens. We are picky and we can pick the best screen for a game. But most gamers don't have many screens. They only have one Xbox, one Switch, one tablet, one phone. We don't have many screens as players. And as players, many players want to play the game the other player want to play. So usually you can consider that you can take something that is already strong on PC nearly anywhere, and the ports are not that expensive, so you can guess. For Shotgun King and also Mechanicus, I have other criterions, but my main one is I'm in France. There's so much time offset of time zones that we don't see everything. I don't see the same thing as you. I don't even know every podcast. But when I see something from the people I follow, like in California or in New York or in Boston, and they retweet something that is from my vicinity with the time offset and time zone, I say, hey, this is something so strong it was around the earth for enough time, so everybody is talking about it. And usually this is something that to me just suffices to say, okay, this is something that we can like look upon. It's very empiric, but like the thing that people can talk about something that which is close to me, but I've done all around the earth. It's so strong. And there's a lot of game devs like this that do things on Ludum Dare, and I see like some Californian game developers retweets this, and I'm like, okay, it must be strong. Then I ask for the numbers, and usually the numbers are super strong. And so basically, we try to look at the numbers because when a game is out and it's very well crafted and well executed, the numbers are usually really super fastly growing. So what I can do, since I'm a console specialist, is most games that are out, publisher wants all the rights. So if you're already on Steam, they are not interested to do consoles. But publisher need to do like we call 50x. When their investors invest $1, they want like $50. And for the least demanding investors, it's like 5x. So they cannot invest many money and they cannot invest under these thresholds. So, but we can take a PC game and just put a few bucks, a few $1,000, make the port, take it to consoles, and we don't need to do like even like 2x or 3x. We just need the game to be profitable, and for us, it's working. We don't have investors behind us; they are not demanding 50x return on investments. So there's a lot of opportunities with games which are already doing well, and we can just help them.
Yeah, so that's really cool. I'm gleaning from this that you understand the market of people who have whatever platform they like to play on. That they're not going to just go to a specific platform for a game. If you want to reach that market, then you need to bring the game to their platform, and you just need to identify what game is at a quality level that it makes sense on that platform and it has a reasonable chance to resonate. That's really good. We're not quite at community questions yet, but I have a question that's very relevant right now, and I'm going to ask it on behalf of Victor. He's asking, how much does it cost to port a game like Shotgun King to, say, the Switch? And if you're using a third-party porting service, what kind of ballpark would you expect a port to cost somebody?
Okay, so Shotgun King is in Lua. So it's like a facsimile of Pico 8 engine. So the first version in Jam was done on Pico 8. So it's like super complicated to take Pico 8 games on Switch because the Switch is like has a slow CPU, and this engine is only CPU. There's no GPU involved. You can make it run on anything on the earth. Except since it's have a small CPU, it's like super slow. The game is super laggy if you don't optimize it. So it takes a lot of time to port and a lot of technology to aggregate together and make sure they work well together. because you don't have like the tools like UAJIT and other tools to make it run great. So for this game, if we were to contract with someone and someone bring us the game and say, can you port my Lua 8, my Lua game, we would be around like, I don't know, 70 or 80K, something like this for free platforms. But for us, we invested more like 50K with marketing, port, services, communication, console relations, and release management. So we did it. It's like the at cost, but it's not that big. But for like a pixel art Lua game, it can seem weird that we are asking this much as a service. But it's what it costs. It's the cost of doing like Lua allow you to offer and create your game super fast, but it has side effects. The side effect is it's only CPU, so console does not have great CPU, so it will lag. So that's it. It's I think yeah.
So, what would be the best way to develop your game to minimize the cost of a port? Like using Unity as an engine or Godot? Or is there some other way? Like, what would be the most cost-effective way? Is as a developer, I wanted to future plan for a port.
I think Unity is still the way to go, because it's very cost effective, and it doesn't know how to do well like large scenes and stuff. So you can do them on PC as well, unless you have HDRP and ECS and stuff like this. But most people won't use it, so it's okay. Unreal is a bit
So
costly
ECS is
because
bad for ports.
ECS is not bad for ports. It's actually very good, but nobody uses it in the indie scene.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that solves many issues. Unreal is much longer, so there's that. And Godot, I think it's not that expensive because there's great support from W4, and there's great layers to do this. So I wouldn't expect it to be very high. And we have a lot of requests about custom engines. So there are some indies that really want to have their tech, and there's not so many porting house or game studio that can adapt to the tech, and we are one of the few to like take whatever tech you want and we can do the ports. We are not that many in that regard.
Okay, that sounds good. So it sounds like Unity or Godot would be a good baseline to start with, and then obviously you just
Yes.
need to make sure that you're not being egregiously unoptimized with the way you put your project together.
Yeah, but there will still be a lot of optimization because when we took the game, in general, it's a slideshow on Switch, like 1 FPS, and then we can trim and optimize, and we get it to like 30 to 60 FPS. But for example, when we work on Blanc, the team was like super thrilled to have the game on Switch, and then they put it themselves on Switch, and it was like 1 FPS. And we said, okay, we can help, but we told you this was forbidden.
Yeah,
So
got
it's
to
a
get
lot
some
of
of that
work.
N0 optimization.
Not possibly
Or
zero, but
oh,
the Switch is
or
like
one. Yeah.
7 times slower. And
Oh man.
most clients don't even begin to understand and imagine this is real, that this number is real. They cannot like process the information. So they just go on and say, okay, they must be like exaggerating stuff, but we are not. It's like unimaginable. The consoles just consumes 20 watts per hour. It's nothing, basically. It's just so less powerful than anything you can expect.
Right. Excellent. That's fascinating. I know a lot of us have worked on games, and they would probably be successful if we got them to port to consoles. And that's definitely one of those things where that's not part of the baseline learning journey for a lot of devs. They're more than happy to get a build put up and, hey, look, I've got it running on Windows, I've got it running on itch, but there's another layer to it. It's not insurmountable, but it's something that a lot of people don't think about until later in the game. So
Mm.
the idea of porting is something that people need to take into consideration because there's huge market opportunities there. So
I don't know
I'm going
if
to
it's
remind the
huge.
audience.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
it's there. It's a way to put in some effort to port, and then all of the effort you put into building your game, you have an extra income stream off of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of extra income screen, but with Game Pass being like basically dead and other opportunities, I think not all games can go on consoles and perform well and make like money because the port is so expensive. Engineers are super expensive, and so I wouldn't like let it flow that if you do a game you have to port it. I think you really have to have a game which is super efficient by itself in terms of communication, marketing, and basically you show the game and everyone is bringing their friends to play. For there's this viral factor because the console maker store is so badly executed. The console store will not bring players by itself. You have to have a lot of marketing and a lot of word to mouth. So many games don't break even on consoles because the port is so expensive. So yeah,
That
I
kind of goes
wanted like just yeah.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to the whole thing with the jam where you make a game and inexplicably it takes on its own life. That has inherent marketing value just because there's something about it that makes people want to tell their friends about it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the original part of this was actually marketing and how to get your word out about your game and specifically the guerrilla marketing aspect. Um, I do want you to dive into that. First, I want to remind the audience that if you have any questions for David, please post your questions in the chat channel and we will get them answered. But I want to go back to talking about the guerrilla marketing and what that looks like. You want to get word out about your game and you don't have a massive budget. What would you say is the minimum budget you need to talk about things to get your word out? And then what do you do? How do you get people to know about your game?
There's a lot of layers because overall the marketing flow over the years is changing always. It's it's always reinventing itself. Back in the days, it was the press, and then there were the content creators on YouTube, and then there were the content creators on Twitch. So there are a lot of trends and a lot of way to do. And these days, for example, for Shotgun King, we tried with content creators, and it didn't take that well. But the thing is, we went to Reddit, and there was like this super large chess community, and so we talked to them and targeted the message and advertisement for them. So I think back now we are like in the what I would call the postmodern age of game marketing. Like we are in the post-marketing phase, I don't know, and we are in this phase where all the tools are here, and there are so many tools, but there is not one silver bullet. And so the thing is, you have to have your budget really clear. Is it a budget for your time? Because this is the most valuable time, because you know your game and you know how to talk to players. So this is something that you have to consider, and it's definitely uh, on the floor. And then you can put money behind it, and your money is best invested if you spend the time to understand where are your players and how you do talk to them. Because not all players are on everywhere. For some games they will be on Twitter. For some games they will be on Japanese forum boards. For some games they will be on other stuff. So before the budget, you really have to understand how and where you sell the game. And then regarding budget, you can make launches that are super efficient with like 5K. You take an agency and then you can email content creators, and then you can talk like in podcast or anything. So for every game has its own marketing flow, and sometimes some games will take a it will be great using one pipeline, and some other game will not work with another pipeline. It's really hard to predict, so there's no like recipe. Usually, I advise that you have around 12K for marketing, give or take, because it means you can hire an agency to scout for what works, what we do call strategic planning. If you don't have the time to do the strategy, but it's best if you know your players and know the strategy you can use actually. And then an agency is usually between 2 and 15K a month. So you can also find like the right agency for you. For example, for our next game, Death Tower, we worked with Starfall because their boss is like he worked at PCube, which was doing Japanese-like stuff. So we talked together and we were on the same page, and he is on the same page of our players. So it's really much more easy to find where our players are because he is basically our players. So we tend to change agency every time we change projects. And some projects will fit with someone, some projects we won't. And that's why I say we are in the postmodern marketing stuff because you have to reinvent your marketing pipeline every time. So I would say, I don't know for the US, but in Europe, between 10 and 20K is the bare minimum to do something that will allow you to have time to cover strategy, know your players, and then unroll some massive actions. Usually it's best when the game is like self-selling, like it's already strong, and then you can amplify the success because marketing doesn't sell a bad game, obviously. But still, we never have the same result with different games.
So it sounds like you're really vouching for the how valuable it is to bring a team on board who live and breathe marketing because of how much things are changing. They need to have their finger on the pulse of what's actually working, and it's worth the investment.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it because especially if they are the target. And this is like the most important stuff. For example, for our previous game, the Bulky Heroes, we worked with Evolve, and their boss is a like super metalheads, which love this. So he was knowing instantly how to sell this. And so like hiring the right marketing team for the right game is like the best invest you can do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Get metalheads to sell your metal game. Yeah, that's brilliant. So let's say you've got a budget and you're working on a project. How do you know when it's the right time? You had mentioned you want to make sure the game is selling well or having some kind of traction. Like what is that moment that you know like okay, it's time to go reach out to the marketing team, and how do you prepare for them?
In the
Like
case
prepare your
of
team so that you can work with them and get the most bang for your buck.
we work very late with a marketing team because we try to do some marketing on our end on the long run. We hire like a freelance social media manager and we prepare stuff. In our case, for our next game, we prepared the Kickstarter thing that is in subscription, but it's not like on right now. And so we wanted to prepare everything as much as possible and get the faster you the no not the faster the further you can. Sorry for my English. We get very very far and we don't talk too much until we know that when we hire the marketing team we can work on what they need, we can give them the messages, we have text translations, trailers, content, and then we can like iterate fast and keep the noise about the game really upbeat, really fast. So we tend to market very late, but we also market ourselves on the long. So we really bring the agency when you have to make a large blast and cover every medium as possible. So you tend to make things intense, and on the lower noise you do it by yourself because as in this we don't have like much power to cover many stuff. So we try to have this approach.
All right, excellent. So that sounds like you kind of do your own community management on a smaller scale with when your crowd is relatively, just the people who you've picked up along the way. But then when you go to hire the marketing agency, you do the preparation to make sure that your team does not become a bottleneck for the
Yeah,
marketing agency to do its work.
yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's excellent. All right, let's move into community questions. We've got a few good questions here from Victor. He's asked me to ask them on his behalf. The first question he has is in relation to your Wendy, where's here it is in relation to Double Kick Heroes. It came out 5 years ago, and people really enjoyed it. Are you planning on releasing another game soon?
Yeah, our next game is announced. It's on Steam. It's called Death Tower. It's a tactical JRPG with roguelite elements. So we have a demo
Death
out.
Tower?
Yeah, Death Tower. And the
Cool.
game has a Kickstarter page as well. And we intend to launch it when the demo is like quality enough. So we are waiting for people to test the demo, subscribe to the Kickstarter page if they like it, and we continue to update until we have like a large enough crowd for the Kickstarter to be successful, and we are still updating it. Since we are working for hire for other stuff and we don't have a publisher, we have all our time. It's just like with Double Kick Heroes, we take our time for stuff to improve until people say, okay, it's good enough. Now I know they are doing it well, so we are progressing on this. We're already around 7K wish list, which is like super cool for us because it means we are beyond the infamous threshold where you can have like some visibility on Steam.
That's pretty huge.
So the game is like doing super well thanks to our marketing team, our agency, our efforts. But the Kickstarter will be like huge, I hope, because we did a lot of work in preparation and trailers. I think it will be fun for people. And also, this is a game which is like actually super tough to sell because JRPGs are hard to make for indie companies. One of the companies that we are inspired by is, of course, the Sea of Star team. And they made a huge Kickstarter with a huge game, and the quality is so high that it's like super hard. We don't have the same team. So we try to manage the expectation and we try to do something that will be well within our limits. So I don't expect it to go the same way. And they were sabotage. Of course, they did an amazing game, which is called The Messenger first, which was published by Devolver and they sold like many million units. But we're taking our own way, our own pacing to push the game and update the demo, and so it's like qualitative enough. We build an engine from the ground up. We are building a community from the ground up because, like Rhythm Games, it's an entirely separate game from JRPGs. So there's a lot of stuff we are reinventing, which is like kind of stupid, but we're in this. If we were like super smart, we would do all the same game all over again and again. But we love to reinvent ourselves, and we thought like JRPG is our next best thing on the wish list after a Metal Rhythm game. So in our stupidity, we put out some love and we try to really build something that is like pleasing. So we built an engine around pixel art and projection. So the pixel art stays super crispy, and so you can take a look at the game and say, okay, it's not the same way that was approached for Octopath Traveler of game like this. So it feels unique when you see the screenshots. You say, okay, there is something. It's different, and so we always try to have some unique stuff to tell or to say or to propose with our visuals or with our games. So that's our next big thing for us.
A lot of times pixel artists are really looking for an engine that supports art so that it presents it the way that they want their art presented. And having an engine that's completely dedicated to a pixel art style is something that would probably resonate with countless pixel artists that exist out in the world. I've worked with some who are very dedicated to do not give me a mixel, do not rotate my pixels, that kind of thing. Are you going to make your your engine available outside of your studio?
I don't think so because our engine is super specialist because it's not only pixel art, but it's isometric pixel art. So, for example, if you see the tiles, you see the tile and it seems like a sprite. And in the beginning, it was like a tilted sprite. You take the sprite and you tilt for the isometry, okay? But we have changed this. So we take the tile and we reproject it on a 3D mesh, but with a correct perspective correction regarding pixels and the crisp pixel. So then you can cast shadows and then you can add lightnings and then lighting, sorry, and then you can have like some proper projections, and so the game doesn't have like mixels even when you slide and you pan and you do parallax, but it's always a 3D engine behind it. So it stays highly consistent, depth is consistent, so you can make many patch processes that would look flat in Unreal or Unity. So the technology is like super specific. So for now, we will wait to ship the games. I hope we can reach Kickstarter success enough so we can put out mods. So the game could be modded in Lua and with hot reload. So I think like people that want to make like JRPG could make their own like pretty much JRPGs in it. But we won't start to license the technology until the game is not out because I think it's irresponsible to make engines and you don't have a game that is like running everywhere. But so far so good. We had like awesome results. It's runs 60 FPS or 90 FPS on Steam Deck. It runs like a breeze on Nintendo Switch. And we are using like EMJ UIs and a lot of stuff. We will show some of our tools in the Kickstarter, and we've showed some in our GIFs. But I would hope we could put the engine in some other people's hand, but we'll wait for us to be successful enough, because if we cannot support it properly, it's also like misleading people. So we'll start with mods probably.
Okay, that's fantastic. I know there's a ton of people who are happy to know that people are working on this kind of tech. There has been countless implementations of Hollywood magic in engines like Unity to figure out how to create very workflow friendly implementation of isometric pixel art, and that's something that I know that there's a demand for. All right,
Okay.
we've got one more question here. It is again Victor. Victor has been the MVP of questions on this episode. Victor asks, he's asked this before to a different guest, and he wants to know your insights. When you hire an agency, part of the money you give them goes towards their profit margins. Is it possible that you'll get better mileage out of the money you spend if you do it yourself instead of hiring an agency who is inherently going to profit?
I think it depends on the game, because an agency is not like doing magic. Because if you spend it yourself, you have to have a super big contact list, and then you have to work your contacts. For example, I have 5,000 contacts in the industry, and when I send an email myself, there will be people which were fired, like from IGN, Kotaku, you name it. And because there is layoffs, there's what we call hard bounds. And when you reach a certain threshold of hard bounds, you cannot send email anymore. You're blacklisted. Yeah, so having contacts and having like people supporting you is not something you can do every 5 years for a game studio. You cannot reach out to 5,000 person every day, every week, every month, ask them how they are doing stuff, is it good for them, etc., because it's just humanly not possible. So an agency, their added value is having all this running smooth, not being blacklisted, talking to every people often. So it's their specialty. So it really depends. You can have the same box and pay someone to a freelancer, which will contact everyone on YouTube. But if your game is not strong enough, is not viral enough, and you're not convincing it by itself, it won't change something. I heard many indies hiring a large companies, and they did not so well because the game was not like powerful enough. And you can have the same company which is selling Baldur's Gate, and the agency will perform very well because obviously it's Baldur's Gate. But still, there is work to do. There is partnership to mount. There is a lot of things. So I think it depends on the game. Most agency will do like pretty good work. What you can do is have like more return on investment if the agency is really on par with the game. For example, if I want to sell an RPG and I go to an agency which is specialized in RPGs, it will be better. Then the company can tell me, no, sorry, the game is not good enough. And there's all sorts of factors that makes an agency being interesting in general. I think if you can do everything by yourself and you have the means and the time, of course, it will be better than an agency. But personally, I have many projects. I'm like super shy. I don't talk to people every day for 5 years, and my game takes 5 years to do. So it's like much more valuable to go to an agency which will master this, which will take care of this, take care of their contacts, and then they have a lot of added value. And my job is to try to make the game very compelling, and the image is compelling, and the assets and the visual effects and the tech, even tech can be compelling. So of course you can reach situation where an agency is not interesting because you are doing everything by yourself. It happens. I know a lot of indie game developers that do it well. But for our team, we are very shy people, very neurodivergent people, neurotypical, and it's really hard for us to maintain like a lot of contacts. So for us, it works well. We have some agencies that work with us. We have a lot of agencies we've worked with. I can name them: Starfall, Evolve, Milan Rodel in France, Papagena in Canada, and usually it goes well because we select them based on the project, and we love to work with all of them. And the thing is, since we share together what is the game and the genre and so many things, they had a lot of value, and we try to propose a game that has value by itself. So they amplify this. So there's not like a good answer to your question. You are right. You can make better profits, but what does it cost to your team? It's the question. So the answer is really relative to you and how you market yourselves and your team. I hope it's an answer.
Yeah, that's a really good response. Ultimately, you only have so many hours in the day, and what do you want to spend your hours doing? Do you want to spend your hours building the game, or do you want to spend your hours marketing? If you've got somebody on your team who wants to market, then that's a different thing. But also, are they any good at it? If you really know what you're doing, 1 hour of your time is worth 8 hours of somebody who has no clue. So somebody could easily outpace you in one day, could do what you would figure out after more than a week of work. So that's the value of hiring the agency, and that's what you're paying for.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Yes.
Excellent. We are at the end of the episode. I'm going to ask you for two things. This has been a wonderful chat. The first is I would like you to plug something of your own that you would like to share and have people check out your latest game. And I would also like you to give our audience some homework. If they want to kind of follow in your footsteps, do something that you think is really important for people to learn, give them some homework for the first step to get started.
Okay, so plugging like my game or the game of someone else, because I can do that as well.
Whoever you want to plug. Whoever you want to plug.
Yeah, obviously subscribe to our Kickstarter for Death Tower because we need it. And I think if you want, you can like check out our pixel artist game, which is called Metal Slug Tactics. It's on PC. It's made by .mu and Lakeir Studio and us. And them having players is obviously like we would be delighted that Metal Slug Tactics is a success. When we built this tower, actually, the guy from Metal Slug Tactics saw the game and said, "Okay, we will hire you because you know your stuff." So it's still like the games are bravos. Okay, so please play Metal Slug Tactics, and if you have feedbacks, send it to them so we can make something great. But yeah, and about homeworks, I would say try to find where your players are and try to like go on Reddit and find Reddit communities that pertain to your games and try to post once something that will not be downvoted to hell. But for example, for many games, you can find a Reddit community which is super niche, but they are also super dedicated to help when they've got the gist of it. So don't hesitate to go to like deeper place. Marketing on Instagram is not possibly like as efficient as Reddit. So what I think is like super cool these days. I really love this place to find niche community because even if it's not large numbers, they are super committed to help. And especially there's one community that I love, which is Destroy My Trailer. And these guys have like super great eyes to help you improve one of your master assets, which is your trailer. So don't hesitate to go to Reddit, push your trailer and say, "Destroy my trailer." There's a lot of good lessons to have there.
Excellent. So go to Reddit and find destroy my game and destroy my trailer. That's good. Get that constructive feedback that you need.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, this has been a wonderful episode. Thank you for
Thank you very
joining
much
us.
for having
And
me.
your insights are very appreciated. I know everybody will get a lot of value out of this episode.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right. Have a good one.